I love when someone says something dumb because that just gives me like an opening to like dunk on them. If you want free Lego, just get a good job. First of all, this was never the plan. This was never the plan. Alright, I'm quitting my job. I'm gonna try this out and see where it goes.
G'day all, welcome back to the channel and for another edition of Kenny's podcast. I don't quite have a name for these type of series yet. I'm still toying on it. Maybe it's KLBW Radio. Still a working title. But today I have a guest which I'm really excited about having here. His name is Jay Ong. He goes by the name JaysBrickBlog. So if you're an adult fan of Lego like me, chances are you've most probably come across his site before when you're researching Lego, all that kind of thing. I've met Jay a couple of years ago at one of Melbourne's Legos convention called Brickvention. Haven't had a great chance to sit down and dive into his backstory, so I'm really excited to have him here today. Welcome, Jay.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm very reclusive, so I don't do too much. But
and this is why this is extra special.
Kenny drove a big truck of cash down my driveway, and I was like, I couldn't say though.
Met with your agent and offered you.
I'm not being paid.
Nah. And it's probably char kway teow, right?
That was exactly.
The icing on the cake.
That's the thing to get me here. Yeah.
And that's something we're going to go and have later on. But let's get through to unpack your story, and it's one of those things where I reckon, as a Lego fan myself, there's always, you hear about different news and Lego reviews, all that kind of thing. But it's also really good to learn about who's behind it. Yeah. And I think that's what I love about doing these kind of sessions, to not just to get to know you better, but also, just find out more. And I'm all about learning. And also, if you're new to my channel, my name's Kenny. I'm the fan of Like My Bricks and entrepreneur. And I'm all about breaking stereotypes and breaking molds and basically helping you guys live your ultimate life through passions, no matter how unique they are. So if you're a fan of this content, then hit the subscribe button so we can deliver more content just like this. Anyway, back to this. First of all, Jay, you've been doing JaysBrickBlog for quite some time now, right?
Yes.
How long has it been?
I think officially about 13 years?
13 years, wow.
Yeah, it's a teenager now.
I think that was probably even before I started my reignition of passion for Lego. What was it for you? What was the set for you that kind of, you grow up, you probably played with Lego as a kid, right?
Yes.
And then you go through life, what they call the dark ages. What was that Lego set for you that kind of, reignited that fuel?
It's a fun one. It is a SpongeBob SquarePants Krusty Krab Adventure set.
Wow. That's funny.
That was the one thing that got me back.
Yeah. What was it about it? Because that's when people think about what got you back into Lego, it's usually like a Star Wars thing or a modular building or something like that. What was it?
This was 2010, and SpongeBob was pretty big back then. SpongeBob was like a fixture of internet humor.
Yes.
And I just love SpongeBob. I grew up watching SpongeBob, so they were making SpongeBob Lego, and I was like, oh yeah, I could be into that.
Did they have many? Did they release many?
Yeah, there was a whole theme.
Yeah, right.
So that set, I picked that set because it had SpongeBob and Patrick. So Patrick's a starfish.
So more for the minifigs.
Yeah. And there was a little Krusty Krab burger car that Patrick was on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was the one that got me back in.
Was that the one that kind of prompted you to start blogging? What was it for you that?
No, that was just something fun that I just wanted to do. Yeah. So it's a very familiar story. I grew up with not a lot of Lego, but I grew up playing with my Lego a lot.
You know about it. Yeah.
We didn't grow up with too much money when I was a kid. So you had
in Malaysia, it's
Lego's expensive.
Yeah, and the conversion rate and all that kind of thing is a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I had a tiny tub of Lego that I used to just play with all the time.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of my childhood. Fun fact: I was actually into competitive Lego because my parents couldn't afford to buy Lego, but they would have these competitions, speed building competitions that they'd use to promote Lego and shopping centers or shopping malls. Yeah. And I used to go there every other week to win Lego. They had I had to win my own Lego.
Yeah, man. Make it happen yourself.
Yeah. So it was pretty good. I think at one point they tried to ban me from joining just because I was just
because you were too good at it.
I was just too good at it. Yeah.
Crack the code. What was do you remember what the first Lego set you wrote about, or what that blog article was?
Yeah, so I started out in, I think, 2010.
Yeah.
And the blogs are still there. So if you go all the way to the
wow, that's
start,
awesome.
yeah, they're still there.
Yeah.
And it was, I wanted to document like the advent calendar. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I just started working at the time.
Yep.
I didn't have a lot of money, but I was like, oh, advent calendar was on sale.
Yep.
I was like, I'll pick it up.
Yep.
And just kind of like take photos of it and just write about it.
Yeah.
I didn't write like every day, but
Yep.
you know, I kind of just documented it as we went along. But yeah.
And then when did you, I guess, like, tell us about that journey? How did you start getting traction? Like, what was it? And what was that kind of moment where you're like, hey, if I could keep doing this, that I could eventually make it like your full-time gig? Like, what was that? Can you take us back to the early days?
First of all, this was never the plan.
Yeah,
this
of
was
course.
never the plan.
Yeah.
I did not intend for to turn this into my job. Kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
Accidentally.
Yep.
I started because I just started working at the time. I was like, I had some disposable income, not a lot, and I wanted to kind of pick a hobby.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of video games at the time, but I was like, I wanted something else that
Yeah.
wasn't quite, just
Screen-free.
playing Counter-Strike or like Dota. So yeah, I just decided, okay, I'll pick something a bit like niche and kind of cool. So like this was like 2010, like hipsters were a thing. So you wanted something like under the radar, something something like to like complement my personality. I'm like, all right, Lego's probably good.
Good outlet.
Felt pretty nostalgic. And I loved Lego as a kid, so I was like, and back then, like adults playing with Lego was not a thing. So I was like, yeah, just pick it up. When I was growing up, I wanted to be like a writer, or like a journalist. So I used to read a lot of like video game magazines. Not sure if you remember like Electronic Gaming Monthly, PC Mag,
PC Mag.
Edge magazine.
You just get the CD-ROM.
Yeah, because we didn't have the internet back then, so
Yeah.
any news was in the form of like newspapers or magazines. So I used to read like video game reviews, and I was like, I wanted to do that as a job because I was like,
that's cool.
play with video games, write about video games. That's the dream.
Yeah.
And then my cousin, who was like an editor of a magazine, so I was like, oh, can I like come along, learn a bit more about like the business and stuff? And he was like, don't do this, like there's no money here. I was like, okay, all right.
It's always like that, right?
But I still wanted to do something with writing, so I just ended up in PR, where you still kind of need to write a lot and still be creative.
Yep.
And you get paid a bit more, not great, but you get paid a bit more. So that's how I ended up there. So I started out my career in PR, and when you're in PR or like when you're in marketing, you have to write a lot.
Yep.
But you're writing for like business, you're writing stuff that you're not necessarily like passionate about. So I was like, all right, I will start a blog and write about something that I'm passionate about, that's aligned with my interest, and just to keep my writing skills alive. And this was like 2010, 2011, like the internet was just starting to really go mainstream. Like this was when broadband was becoming a thing. Smartphones were starting to really like mature. You got internet on your phone, you got emails on your phone. That was a huge thing. Like Blackberries were
Other
a thing.
than BlackBerry, right?
Yeah. So so I decided, all right, I'm just gonna start a website because at that time people were starting to use the internet for marketing as well, with social media. Like Twitter was around, Facebook was around. So I was like, all right, I'll start a blog just to get my hands dirty, just so I could understand the technology and how these things work, and also as a bit of a creative outlet. So and then things got out of hand, and here we are.
Wow. That's
So
cool.
so it was never the goal to turn this into my job. Like people would ask me like years ago, hey, you're gonna like quit your job and gonna do Lego full time now. I'd always just laugh at them because I was like, no, I've got a
you've got a steady.
I got a proper
full-time,
career. Like I'm pretty good at my job. I
Yep.
like what I do. But I was like, and this was always a side thing. Like it was
Yeah.
always a hobby until it.
Can you tell us about that moment where you were like, because obviously I can relate to you in a sense that you're doing this as a side thing. It's your hobby. It's what you're passionate about, but you got your steady income. What tell us about that moment where you're like, I think I want to pursue this full time, and then leave this comfort zone, right? And then go into what a lot of people would deem as like a bit risky, like, you want to tell us about that moment? And
Yeah.
how
That was
happened
that was a big shift, and I went into it in a slightly different manner that most people kind of you know, end up in this line of work.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they kind of start out as kids.
Yes.
You start with like a YouTube
Yep.
channel.
Yep.
And then you build an audience, and you're starting to get paid, and then suddenly, like, you know, it becomes enough to sustain you.
Yep.
And then it becomes your job.
Yes.
I had the opposite problem because I had I had a very established career.
Yep.
And yeah, so I had to kind of reverse engineer turning this into a full-time gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, for me, the main thing was the main consideration was, can I supplement my or can I replace my existing income? Because that was the big one for me. Because, like, I'm the main breadwinner.
Do you have kids at the
time?
time?
I had kids at the time. I had 2 kids at the time. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. I had a mortgage, got bills to pay for, and it's not something that you can't, like, I wasn't at a position where I could, you know, turn to my wife and go, oh, all right, I'm quitting my job. I'm gonna, you know, try this out and see where it goes. Like, if I was like in my early 20s, then maybe, you know, when there's a lot more, you can be riskier with things. Whereas, like, I was at a point where I couldn't do that. So I had to, like, reverse engineer and figure out, okay, I was making this much a month. How can I get to this amount? And how can I, you know, just monetize it to a point where it can, you know, take over, or if not take over completely, get to about like 70-80%. And
yeah, wow. So you almost like you're at a point where you can't just basically go, all right, I'm just gonna quit. Go all in. You had a family. You had all these responsibilities, but you I guess crafted your way out of it, right? How long do you reckon was that transition period?
So I'm a very, like, very conservative person. So for me, I gave myself a goal. Well, not really a goal. It was more of a checkpoint. If I got to that checkpoint, then I would make a decision at that point. And that was, can I make enough money on a consistent basis for a year and a half? Because, like, if you're online, like, you don't know whether, like, it's a fluke or not. Like, you know, if you're making this amount of money, but the, you know, where the rubber hits the road is, can you do it consistently? So for me, it was like a year and a half of making, like, consistent money, because you're in business, things go up and down. You don't know, like, you know, is this a good season? And this was like during COVID as well. So everything was like, you know.
So in a way, did that play a big part in you being able to get over that hurdle of?
Well, like I say, it was a very conservative, like, because once you're doing it for like a year and a half and you're, you know, earning steady income, like, it de-risks the entire process. So I could, you know, I could literally, at that point, I could just go, like, go to my boss and go, like, sorry, I'm done.
So was that also a part of it, was like, so your wife was on board with that too? That whole, Was there any kind of...
Because it was the same approach that I took when I told my parents that I was, you know, quitting my job to do Lego full time. So I only told them, like,
gradually
2 years or like a year into it. So they would, you know,
because
if you tell your parents, like, I'm gonna quit my job and write about Lego, they'd be like, what? How are you gonna pay for your kids? How are you gonna pay for your house? But I told them, like, a year in, and I had already been doing it for a year, and
so
they were like,
almost like proving it.
It's like, okay,
shut up, you can't say anything now. No, I can completely relate. It's one of those things where you yourself you're trying to, you know, almost prove not just to your family, but also to yourself that this is something that you can sustain. Was there any kind of low points that kind of you were going through? You're like, oh man, I don't know if I can make this work. Because, you know, the calendar, you're very much reliant on Lego releases as well, and how how much people are buying through your links or whatnot. Were there any kind of points where you felt like, oh, maybe might not be, you know?
Not particularly.
Okay, cool.
I'm a pretty goal-oriented. I approach things very strategically. So I set a goal and put in a strategy
Yep.
and just kind of go to work on it. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there was a low point.
Okay, cool. No.
But it was more of I think the big thing for me was that I needed to like back myself.
Yeah.
I think the low point would be that point where you're like, I don't know if I can do this. There's there's a lot of safety and comfort working a corporate job. Getting a steady paycheck and then going from that to like uncertainty. And I think like that was the small hump that I just needed to get over. But now that I look back at it, like it was absolutely the right choice to back myself.
It's almost like your biggest challenge is getting over that hump, or getting over these kind of, negative limiting beliefs and all that kind of thing. Help you get through. Now that's cool. I'd love to find out more about the LAN. So for those of you people at home who don't know what the LAN is, it stands for Lego Ambassadors Network. And I know a lot of younger creators out there who are watching content on Lego. They're getting really into it. They look at like this to be the dream, like to not just get free Lego, but basically have a living basically in the Lego world, surrounded by Lego, building it, talking about it, all that kind of thing. Tell us about the journey of the Lego Ambassadors Network and how you started.
I think for those that don't know what the LAN or the Ambassador Network is,
they love their acronyms, right? The Lego world. It's like
you gotta turn everything into an acronym.
Yes.
So back then, when the LAN first started out, it was mostly a collection of Lego user groups, or LUGs, another acronym.
It's another
and these would be like Lego clubs that would get together, get builders together. It would be a social thing, but they'd also do like put on shows, exhibitions, conventions, and that used to be, I guess, the where the adult, AFOL, so like adult fans would congregate.
You're getting all the acronyms now.
Yeah, exactly. So the Ambassador Network was put together as a way for Lego to engage with them because some people within Lego saw this as a huge opportunity because back then, like Lego was still very much a kid's toy.
Yeah. Yep.
And there were a few people within Lego who saw the potential with engaging in adult fans. So they set this thing up. And the whole point was to like communicate directly with these groups, support them with things like bricks, official presence and stuff. So a lot of these like big fan conventions, like, we've got Brick Convention here. You have, big shows in like the UK, like Scareback, in the Europe, like in Europe, like Scareback. So these were some of like the main things. And the whole point was to kind of, support adults who were into Lego and who were creating this like amazing displays, models, sculptures, and just things that really demonstrated what you could do with the brick that wasn't beyond just a toy. So that was a starting point. So the word ambassadors, because each lug or each like club had to nominate like an ambassador to speak on behalf of them.
Like a real ambassador.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Represent the interests of the clubs, but at the same time be that point of contact within Lego as well. So like, if there was news or updates, there could be one person and then you would, kind of bring that to the club.
Yep.
So that's how it all started out. And then at that time, you had some really big, like, news websites. So people like Brickset, The Brothers Brick, Eurobricks, for example.
Now JaysBrickBlog.
Yeah, now JaysBrickBlog.
That's it.
So when we first started out, we were called like online R-Lugs. So there was no fan media. And I guess they saw the potential of engaging with some of the bigger fan sites. And so they brought them into the fold as well.
So for you, was it a hard application, or did you kind of like apply and got in?
Back then, you had to be like, back then you had to be kind of like tapped on the shoulder and go, hey, would you like to apply? Or would you like to
so someone actually reached out. What was that feeling like?
It was a huge honor because I was just like writing about Lego at the time. And
how many years into blogging was this?
I would say about 5, 6 years. I was just doing it consistently at the time. It was like, tap in, hey, we got this thing, do you want to apply for it? So then you put in an application and then...
Yeah, that's awesome.
So a lot of people kind of look at, and this is talking about like social media as a whole, like a lot of people kind of just look at LAN and kind of see like all the benefits. And just putting it out there, people just see all the free Lego that you get.
What's better than getting free Lego all the time? And
But that's actually quite a small percentage of what the land actually is. It's like all these like Lego conventions, they exist because they have support from Lego. We get all the sets released early, but beyond that as well, there's also I guess it's a group. It's kind of like the United Nations in a sense.
Yeah.
So you have there's like a forum.
Yes.
And it's I guess a direct way to communicate into Lego. And there's been a lot of things that have happened in the forum that have resulted in actual like changes to how Lego produce sets or market sets that people don't really know. So I think the two the biggest example that I can think of is Lego's region exclusives. So I'm not sure if you remember, but this was back in 2012, I think 2012, they released like the first 2 Chinese New Year sets.
Yes.
And that was only released in China and Asia Pacific.
Okay.
So if you were in Western Europe or the US, you completely lost out.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a big deal because I think a lot of people felt that it was quite unfair.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's plenty of people that relate to Chinese New Year sets that are here or in the US. Like Asians are everywhere, right?
Yeah. So there was quite a big movement, both like in the public but also within the land as well, to kind of talk to Lego and really kind of collate feedback from communities to go, hey, we really want this and all that stuff, kind of stuff. And the big change was that Lego recognized and kind of heard all that feedback, and they went, okay, we will not do region exclusives anymore. So that's why we have all the Chinese New Year sets
because of you guys,
Monkey Kids. And then recently, I think the most recent one was the shift of like minifigures from blind bags to blind boxes, and that was a huge outcry.
Oh, wow.
There's still a huge outcry.
So what are you saying, that the ambassadors were fighting for Lego to go to boxes rather than the bags?
No, I think most people recognize the need to kind of shift away from like single use plastic.
More the sustainability
but
stuff.
It's more. They wanted a way to identify what was in there, and now you have like the data matrix or like QR codes that you can scan. And that was like there was a lot of lobbying that was happening. Like speaking directly to Lego.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
because I remember blind bags. My first experience with collecting minifigures was all about like going into the store and literally like
just feeling them up,
them. Like I felt like such a weirdo, like in the aisle with all these Lego like minifigures around me, and just feeling and going, oh yeah, that's it. And it's interesting that they went towards the box one because I don't know. Part of the fun is kind of like feeling and kind of guessing and doing it that way. So now that they've gone the box route and almost like a cheat sheet to go, this is it.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, kind of, I don't know, takes a little bit out of that kind of blind bag experience.
I mean, it's a necessary shift. Lego have committed to like removing all plastic from
Yeah, I reckon they could have done that with paper bags.
They tried. It just wasn't strong enough.
Okay, cool.
So so like 2 years ago, a bunch of us were in Denmark. So we actually spoke, like the sustainability team actually spoke to us about it. They talked us through the whole thing. There were lots of like closed sessions to get feedback to clue us in that this was coming. And we told them back then, they were like, this is going to blow back in your face. You need a way to identify them somehow. Like put a code, like print really tiny text, something, because because people don't like gambling. People don't like wasting money, because after you get your third minifigure that you don't want, it really sours your experience.
But that's when you do the trades, right?
But I mean, realistically,
I get
it. Like there's a lot of like feedback that goes into the product that gets captured on the land.
That's
and
good.
this is not just from like fan media or people on social media. They're like lugs, and like big Lego like social clubs that are also collecting feedback as well.
It's kind of good to hear that Lego are actually listening to, and they're not just giving you free Lego to promote. They're actually getting answers and ideas from you guys.
It's not that unusual. Like, I mean, if you have, if you look at any other brand, they usually have something like this set up. If you're a tech brand like Apple, for example, you'll fly out the biggest creators to your product unveils. You'll get review units out to them. So it's not that unusual. I think what's different is that it's also a two-way communication channel. And that's something that's really unique about the Lego community and Lego like hobby as a whole. Is that something like this actually exists?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, you obviously are privy to all the kind of information and insights on new sets and all that kind of thing.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, Lego is famously very secretive with what comes out.
So even with you guys, sometimes they hold their cards quite close.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because I know sometimes you know well ahead of time, right? And other times you literally find out just last minute and all that kind of thing.
So sometimes, like once a year, they hold like fan media days, which is a very special event that not every fan media gets invited to. You have to be at a certain like
There's
level.
different tiers or something like that.
Yeah, there are different tiers.
Yeah,
So you have
yep.
to be, you know, I guess good enough, trustworthy enough to get invited to this, because you get taken to, you get invited to Billund. We don't get flown out. It's all paid for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
They might give us like
It's more the exclusivity that you get to.
they might give us like lunch, but that's it. Yeah, so you're gonna pay for flights, you're gonna pay for lodging,
Yes.
you're gonna pay for everything.
Yeah.
Pay away there, but you do get access to to see what's coming ahead. You get to speak to designers, and
that's exciting. Like how? So let's say is it every year that you go to Billund?
Yeah, it's an annual thing.
Yep.
Like during the pandemic, it was virtual, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. So how so when you go and you find about all these new releases, like sometimes these releases aren't going to come out till way like 12 months potentially.
Yeah.
So how hard is it for you to kind of keep these secrets?
Oh, very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Like I think the hardest secret to keep was like Rivendell, because when they when they unveiled Rivendell, there was like it's like
a relaunch or something that's like
the atmosphere in the room was just like electric. Like people just
crazy.
couldn't believe themselves. And
Did
like,
they do the blanket review?
yeah, and it's such a beautiful model as well. So it was like people like my mind was blown.
Yeah. And today it's like one of the most popular sets at the moment.
Yeah,
even for us, our
yeah,
line
and having
kit,
to keep that a secret.
Yeah.
I had a lot of like photos and videos on my phone that I was just like paranoid about accidentally like sharing. Like you don't want to like flick,
like if you
flick
do
up
like
an
a
Instagram
carousel.
story. Yeah. It's like, whoa, what's this?
Yeah, that's funny.
So I went through a lot of pains to like silo off. I had to like delete stuff off my phone, put it on a hard drive.
Because how brutal would Lego be if they if you know what I mean, if Win got caught out that you accidentally, not intentionally, but accidentally, like is that it? Like no second chance, no.
You could get kicked out.
Yeah.
You could get you could get put on probation.
Yeah.
You could lose like
Yeah.
support. But I mean, it's not so much of, like avoiding punishment. It's more of I mean, it's just a professional thing to do. There's two-way trust involved. Like Lego are trusting us to handle this like sensitive information very carefully.
Yeah.
So I, as a professional, I need to put in measures in place to ensure that I don't accidentally,
Because this is what your business is all about, right? So it's very crucial.
Yeah, I mean, this is my job, my career right now. So I have a lot of like professional pride in this. Like, I mean, you should with anything that you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like it's just a bare minimum. Yeah.
So there'll be so many other kind of people that are getting into Lego or wanting to make this their day job and all that kind of thing. What kind of what I was going to ask you, like, what kind of I guess advice would you have to share to anyone who's wanting to do something similar in the Lego space?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm like the best person to like to give advice
from
on
your
this.
experience. Like if you were to kind of, I guess, give yourself advice 10 years ago going into this, what would you have kind of told yourself?
Look, I think it's examining why.
Yeah.
I think you got to ask yourself why you want to do this. Like if you want,
other than getting free Lego, right?
look, if you want all the Lego in the world, if you want free Lego, just get a good job.
Yeah.
Like if you're a professional, if you're an engineer, a lawyer, engineers, lawyers, doctors, they don't have problems affording Lego. If you get paid $100,000 a year, 150 grand, 200 grand, like buying a Venator, no problem. You can drop that kind of money because so like the free Lego is not like, honestly, it's not a big like after a certain point, like it's not a big level because
it's still a job at the end of the day.
if you earn enough money, you can buy all the Lego in the world.
And
it's honestly probably much easier to like develop your own career and earn money through like a regular job than it is to be a full-time Lego person.
That's good. It's good advice.
But I think for like people who want to pursue this, you have to be passionate about it, because at the start, you know, you're essentially talking to no one. You're talking to a void, and then you're talking to like two people. You're talking to 5 people. You're talking to 100 people, and you just got to get good at it, because and you just got to do it because you love it, and not because you want to turn this into a full-time job. Because you know, the habits and the skills that it takes to talk about Lego to 5 people and to 1 million people is the same. You gotta love it. Yeah. No. So and then you also got to be, I think, like strategic about this, because being a full-time creator dedicated to one singular brand is very hard. You don't see this. It's actually quite rare, because if you look at, you know, some of like the biggest YouTubers, they're like entertainers. If you're like a tech YouTuber or like an automotive YouTuber, you don't focus just on like Toyotas. You don't focus. I mean, some people do just kind of focus on Teslas, but it's very rare to find brands that you can just, you know, kind of focus 100% on, because that limits your like commercial potential, because you can't take brand deals from Mega Blocks or any one of like the third-party brands. You know,
they're very pure on their brand.
They're very pure on their brand. So, you know, kind of honing in on just one singular thing is very, very hard.
So you must love it when Lego are bringing out new collections, because it gives you more, I guess, essentially to talk about, right?
Yeah. And there's always stuff to talk about. So and then just being clear on what your approach is, because at the end of the day, if you want to turn this into your full-time job, it becomes a less of a creative endeavor into more of an entrepreneurial endeavor, because you're thinking about
it's your own business.
How do you monetize it? How do you keep the revenue coming in? How do you grow? How do you scale? You know, how do you expand your team if that's what you want to? How do you hire? All those skills that are
definitely.
So
it's almost like the second phase. You've got like the journey of like the passion and grinding and you know, learning about business, but the second phase is almost like once you've had a bit of traction and you're actually starting to get some income, and how do you sustain it? How do you grow it? And there's a lot more than just getting free Lego and writing about it and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. If you can't read a P&L statement,
you got to get it's a numbers game at the end of the day. It's like, how do you sustain it? Especially when you have the family and the single income or the mortgage and all that kind of stuff as well.
So you know, there's a lot of skills that you need to pick up, and you know, so don't quit your day job. You know, I think always have that as a side, but because I think it's very risky. A lot of people go into it thinking that they want to do it as a full-time job. But it's the same like sports. Like a lot of people, you know, dream of playing in the NBA, but only like,
I still do.
I know. But, hey, if Linsanity can make it, you know,
Kenny Lee can make it.
Exactly.
Kenny Lee movement.
But it's the same like pro sports. Like you know, a lot of people go into sports thinking that they want to make it, play in the NBA, but only like the 0.01% make it to the NBA.
It's a lot more harder work than people think.
It is a lot of work, and you have to be like exceptional. You have to be like a freak of nature. You have to work very hard.
Be very driven.
So there's a lot of like parallels between like being a pro athlete and being a full-time creator, because you know it's that's awesome. Tell us, I'd love to find out more about your, like, you've got Lego obviously is the number one passion, but inside Lego, what is that collection or the series that you're super into? Like whether it's Star Wars or Harry Potter, or tell us about Jay's favorites. I think if you look at the modern portfolio, obviously like icons, but again, like saying icons
are so broad, right?
It's so broad. Big fan of Lord of the Rings. Like that was the I was a big Lord of the Rings fan, so you know, growing up, read all the books, watched all the movies. When the sets came out, I made it a point to buy every single set in the theme. At a point where I was not buying like a stupid amount of Lego. But I was like, I need to get every single one. But I think what really, you know, what I'm really passionate about is like vintage Lego. So sets from the 70s, 80s, early 90s. Classic Lego. Classic Lego from that era. Basically just stuff that I wanted as a kid that I could never have. That's my
I can totally
That's
relate.
That's what makes me like that's what keeps me up. Like the modern stuff is nice, don't get me wrong. Like building a modern set like the Venator or like a UCS set, that's very impressive.
Yep.
But like the stuff that really gets me going is like the nostalgic stuff.
It's that dream because like I relate to you because I was similar where I didn't have a whole lot of Lego growing up, but every now and then maybe a birthday I might get like that small, and I say small set because Lego was so expensive, that Blacktron minifigure, I'll never forget that. And then you get this, do you remember these little it's like a poster and you like unwrap it all and it becomes this big poster and it shows you all
that's the catalog,
the massive sets. You're like, oh man, I remember having it on my wall and thinking one day I'm gonna have this massive Blacktron set. Or what was the other one? There was another space series as well. M-Tron, that's right. M-Tron.
Ice Planet.
Yeah,
yes,
you're all over it.
Yeah.
So now that you're an adult and you've got money to buy Lego, have you gone back and tried to like source those type of sets? Yeah.
Yeah. So I collect a lot of like vintage sets.
Yeah, awesome. I'd love to know like where do you? I mean, because you get a lot of Lego from Lego, but you also buy the Lego that you like as well. What is your house like? Do you have this?
It's a mess.
Yeah. And then for me, it's like all about like when you've got a lot of Lego, it's how do you display it in a way that I guess your wife can approve of it. That still looks...
Oh, she doesn't approve of it. Nah, she doesn't approve of it at all. In fact, I need to tidy up. I've been putting off tidying up for like 6 months now. It's getting to a breaking point.
Because are you building the sets and then once you've finished like writing about it, and are you like dismantling it all and packing it up? Like, what are you doing with your sets?
I used to dismantle the sets, but because it's my job now, I find it easier to just leave them
as is
built. I'll store them in maybe like shelves or in like big containers, but it's much easier to have it like just there. Like say the R2D2 for example, like we had the first UCS R2D2, then they updated it, and now there's like the mini version.
You almost need a bigger container just for the different R2D2s.
Yeah, exactly. So if I want to pick something out to like reference and like compare, because I have to do that now. Like it's just much easier to have stuff. That's like
funny. I thought of that the other day when I saw you bringing out. You had Barrador, but then I think you brought out. Did you bring out a couple of other sets as well? You had,
like the Eiffel Tower, the
I was like,
Tower.
I wonder where you're storing that, because if that was my house, it's like such an effort to have to not fully dismantle it, but like part dismantle, but then put it back together again.
I definitely need a warehouse.
Yeah,
like
mate.
It's coming to that point.
Sounds like it.
I have like I have storage units.
Yes.
The units.
Yes.
There's
that's where all the
now.
wow.
So that's where I kind of store an archive.
Yeah. So you actually keep every single set that you get.
Most sets. Some I have to break apart.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome. Let's talk about. I'm really interested to unpack the whole content creation side of things. JaysBrickBlog was the blogging, right? The writing. And nowadays, even for me, like I do, like every time I hear about Lego news, it's usually through your blog. And I still,
that's good.
Yeah, I still go to the blog and read it and stuff like that. But a lot of the way, I guess, Lego ambassadors do content, all social media now. So it's a lot. So how much do you think has now changed from when you started, say, 5 years ago? Not started, but like the difference 5 years now compared to 5 years ago in terms of blogging and how that all kind of works in today's world.
I could chat about this for like ages. Look, websites are still a thing. I don't think that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
Although some people think they do, because people still want to like read stuff.
Yep.
And if you want to look at photos, if you want to like quickly get information, like websites are still the most optimal way. Like if you want to look at like HD photos, you want to really look into the details. You got to go to like a website, whether it's lego.com or like a blog or like Brickset. You know, it's just easier to like look at stuff and really kind of get the information that you want from a website. People still read, surprisingly. And
I never read, but I go straight to the bottom and then look at all the pictures, and I'm like, then I'll go back up and look at like just little dot points.
But if you're like a busy person, if you don't have time to sit and watch YouTube for like hours a day, you know, people still go to websites because they want to know what's coming up. They want to read reviews. and I've always just felt more comfortable writing.
Yeah.
I express myself and I communicate the best through writing. That's always been my thing.
Yep.
Which is why I have a blog.
Yeah.
But social media is important because
It's changed so much now as well.
it's changed so much. And if you've been on the internet for the longest time, change is the only constant. Like back then, it was like, I need to grow a Facebook page. I need to grow all the likes on my Facebook page.
Yes.
I need to grow my followers. And then Instagram came along, and then it's all about like photos.
Yeah, there's
and then
TikTok,
you've
and
got
there's Twitter, and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Threads.
So there's like the mediums are always evolving. The channels are always evolving, but you still gotta like reach people.
Yeah.
And like social media is so powerful right now because it gives you the ability to like reach, you know, masses of people, like hundreds and thousands and millions of people.
Yep.
If your stuff resonates.
Yeah. So how have you had to adjust, or how did you find you have to adjust, you know, with the times in terms of how people are consuming content these days? I know you said like writing is like your comfort, you know, that's what you do, but how have you had to adjust and now ensure that you're catering to the viewers on like TikTok and all that kind of thing?
Look, personally,
YouTube.
I just do it for fun.
Yeah.
It's a creative endeavor. Like I don't really care about the views. I don't really care about followers. I don't look at these things.
Yep.
They're like, in like the marketing world, you call them like vanity metrics because, you know, like, like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But when I first started going full time, like one of the first things that I did kind of put as a strategic pillar was to like flesh out and grow out the social channels, just so that there's another avenue for people to like access content, because again, not everyone wants to read a website, but I still got to reach people. I still got to bring new people in, and introduce myself to new people. And generally people find it a lot more trustworthy if they can put a face to your brand or who you are, get a bit of your personality, get an idea of who you are, and that kind of rounds out the whole brand, I would say. Because
you started heavily in the blog space, what point did you say, okay, I have to get my face out there now, I have to get my personality out there?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to just changes in people's expectations. Right now, you can go to, there's so many like news sites, there's so many sites, but you don't really know who they are. And because you don't know who they are, you don't know what their tastes are, you don't know if they have a sense of humor. It's very hard to connect with. Like if you go to like, I'm not sure if you play like video games, but like if you go to like IGN has like, 60, 70 writers that review video games. But, and if you want to get a gist of what the game is about, sure, it's useful. But when you come to a point of, can I trust this person? Or do I, does this person have any authority? Does this person carry weight with what they say? You don't know, because there's just like a dime a dozen. Whereas like if you go to like YouTube, you see the same person, you see, you follow them, you get an idea of their quirks, their personality. You develop that sense of trust. So social media is kind of helps round out what I do on the blog as well.
I think that's why a lot of people underestimate the power of that kind of personal side of things, or that personal branding side of things, because that's what people relate to, right?
I used to be very shy, and I still do. If it were up to me, I would just be completely like anonymous, and that was the that was why I started a blog instead of a YouTube channel, because I had a day job at the time, and I wasn't sure how that would impact my like professional brand at the workplace if I had a YouTube channel, whereas the blog's more like faceless. I'm not, you don't really kind of see me there.
Yes, that's so funny, because I completely relate, because being like the founder of like My Bricks, I was very much comfortable with not being in front, you know what I mean? That's why we grew a team, and we had like other people to be the face. But it wasn't until I realized that yes, people want to relate to people. They want to, there might be different lighting brands out there, or there might be different other Lego bloggers out there, but it's kind of like, why do people want to follow you? They want to relate to you, and they want to see that personal side of you. And that's
because if you put my, like competition, side by side, you go, okay, you've got site A versus my site versus site C.
Yep.
What's the X factor that will put me ahead of site A and site B?
Yes.
And I kind of figured out it was, infusing a bit more personality, because there's a lot of Lego sites. There are a lot of people who write reviews.
There's more and more.
Yeah. There's new stuff coming out, but you don't really get a sense of who they are.
Yep.
So that was like, for me, that was a competitive advantage that I kind of honed on.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I'm a fairly like creative person, and I like to like experiment and just have fun.
Like putting different heads on your top of your
head,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's not like I don't want to do like the stuffy reviews. I mean, you can get the stuffy reviews on the blog. That's the more like serious side. Like, should you buy this? But if you want to like entertain, and you want to like and social media does kind of force you to like entertain, and just kind of
it's more authentic as well, I think,
and for me it just comes down to reflecting who I am as a person. So I have a bit of an unserious side to me as well, so I get to like kind of
express
show that
it.
off. I crack jokes.
Yeah. No, that's good. Like, because the first time you started getting in front of camera and all that kind of thing, did you find that challenging? Like, how did you journey through that?
100%.
Yeah.
I don't have a face for I don't have a face for YouTube.
What are you talking about, man? He's got the Lego face.
Yeah.
So like the first time you kind of started doing that, like how was that experience for you?
Tough. Yeah. But like with anything, like it always starts out tough, and then you just kind of just
plow through it.
You just kind of plow through it, and you just got to get used to it.
Yeah. How have you, whether it's your personal side of things, being on camera, or the blogs, have you ever experienced like negativity from like negative comments, toxic comments, that kind of thing?
Oh, I love toxic comments.
Yeah.
I love when
I love your attitude to that.
I love when someone says something dumb, because then that just gives me like an opening to like dunk on them, and I have to like be very like careful with who I dunk on and how I dunk on them. But if you say something dumb, or like
it's a
if
challenge
you say something
for you.
like if you say something like like incredibly offensive or like homophobic, I will make an example out of you. Like I will dunk on you so hard that like
it almost drives you to want to make sure it's a challenge for you basically when the negative thought comes in. You're like, oh yes, here we go.
I occasionally get comments of like, oh, how can I trust you? You get like free sets, and I'm like, I can
people
buy.
are ridiculous, right? There's always
I can buy these sets on my own. Like a lot of people like hone in on like you're getting free Lego, but again, once you get to a certain point, like Lego's a relatively like cheap hobby.
Yeah.
Like if you've seen people into like watches, or like
luxury goods,
cars,
yeah,
skiing, like there's a lot of hobbies that cost way more than Lego. And so like after a while you're like
but then like have you ever dealt with something that, or seen something, or someone said something about you that's like kind of taken you aback a little bit? I know like the stupid dumb comments is one thing, but then have you ever felt any kind of like, oh whoa, that's kind of, you know what I mean, like made you pause for a little bit or anything, or have they all been quite relatively light the way you've...
Look, I've been on the internet a long time to kind of, you kind of have to develop a thick skin. And the best thing you can do is just like ignore these comments. Like just don't read the comments. Just don't read the comments. Like just walk away from the computer, walk away from the phone, they're just there. It's just like you have a lot of like faceless like trolls, and like it's not so bad for me because I feel like I've developed a pretty like respected like brand because I've been doing it such a long time. People know that they can trust me, and I feel like I'm generally pretty fair when it comes to reviews.
Do people like jump on board and support and stuff like that when there's a stupid comment because they're loyal to
but like I feel like there's like there are a lot of like female creators, which I think gets like some of the worst like unsavory comments. I'm so lucky that I'm not a girl doing this on the internet because like they kind of like
it's a lot more brutal.
sexist, like misogynistic comments that you get as a girl. It's just like, just like commenting on your looks and stuff like that. It's like,
and it still happens.
Yeah.
It's very common.
And like, I mean, like at the end of the day, these are like basement dwellers.
Of course.
They don't see the light.
It's
like,
it's a cheap shot as well.
Yeah.
You know, for them, it's like, doesn't matter. It's just
like,
so easy for them just to release and go nuts on.
Yeah.
on
It just
people.
reflects, like, I feel it just reflects poorly on the people who say these kind of things and make these kind of comments.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, if they do get these comments, they do find it hard and often dwell and question, but then something that they don't realize, it's more about the people who are actually making these type of comments.
And I'm much older as well, so like, you learn to like be, you learn to develop like a much thicker skin, and you just like, as you get older, you just care less about what people say.
That's
about
it.
You.
All that matters really is like,
you're
your
not important to me.
surroundings.
You're like, you're not family. You're not one of my closest friends. If my closest friends would say like, hey, your reviews suck, like I can't trust you anymore, you're a shield, then I'll be like, oh, okay, that cuts deep. But I don't care about like, random opinions.
So you've got, is it 2 kids?
I have 2 kids.
Two kids, boy, girl,
a girl and a boy.
girl and a boy. How are they? How's the experience like with them in terms of Lego? Are they old enough to play with Lego yet? And are they Lego fans themselves?
My daughter's my CFO. I call her my CFO. She's my chief friends officer.
Yeah.
So every single like friend set that I produce,
Not financial.
every single friend set that I feature and I review, she builds all of them.
That's cool.
And I go to her for like insight into like, who's
that's
this
good.
character,
That's
who's that
awesome.
character.
Yeah.
So she's like my like expert.
Yes.
So she has a bit of Lego, but she's getting older where she just wants to play a lot more like video games right now. Like she's into like Minecraft.
Yeah, I'm so sick of Lego. Lego's all over my house.
Yeah. You kind of take it for granted.
It's funny because I remember going through my journey and there was just Lego everywhere. And the boys like will often get to build like a massive Star Wars set, and I have to tell them like, guys, Lego's actually quite expensive. Like, don't take this for granted. Like, this is something that a lot of other kids don't get the luxury of being able to build such a big set like this. But hey, it's for my work. But
but they grew up in that environment, so like to them, it's like normal to have like all this Lego at home. So they don't quite,
Nah, that's awesome. So Jay's Brick Blog has recently had this big refresh, facelift.
Yeah,
the brand,
rebrand.
Yeah. Tell us about
relaunch.
That. Yeah.
That was something that I've wanted to do for like the longest time.
Yeah.
So I started out, when I first started out with my site, I had a pretty like clean design. Like I was pretty happy with like the branding and how like minimalist it looked. But I never had a logo because I'm not a graphic. I'm not a graphic designer. And I was like, that's all right. I'll just put it off. I'll get it like next year. And then it became like 5 years, and then 10 years.
Putting it off.
And I was just like, all right, I don't have a logo. So again, when I started doing this like professionally, then that meant that I could use like 100% of like my mental capacity to think about like my work and like my brand and my business. And I was like, okay, I need to like change things up because I've had my blog like designed for like almost 10 years now, and it was getting a bit tired, and I was like, I need something a bit better. Again, thinking about how I can stay 1 step, 2 steps ahead of everyone else. And that meant improving the readability, user experience, how it looks. You just kind of got to refresh your stuff every now and then.
For sure.
Especially if you want to command like that trust and authenticity. You can't look like you can't have your blog looking like it was like some free like WordPress team. No one's gonna trust you.
Of course.
Because like unfortunately people look at these things. So engaged an agency, a creative agency to redesign my blog, and that was like the first major like investment that I've put into my blog, and I wanted to just get it done and do it right. So that coincided with the new blog design, and I also introduced like a new logo, which was,
and again, speaking to your love of classic space, it's got that little rocket ship in there.
And also like the font is inspired by like the typography of like Antron. And like that 90s, late 80s, 90s. So I wanted something like modern but also retro, like almost like retro futuristic, that reflected who I am and what I'm interested
Yeah.
in. And also because I want to like create like merch as well. Not to like sell, but to just like give away.
Of course, it's branding as well.
Yeah.
So how, like, for those who don't really understand, like what is branding? Like, why is it so important? You know, what do you view? You know, can you explain to audiences like the power of branding to you? Like, why is it important and why do you do it and all that kind of thing? Yeah.
Again, it's standing out from a very like competitive space. So I wanted a very contemporary brand that people could, you know, relate to, and go, okay, that's Jay. I don't want to confuse like you as a brand. You never want to be confused for your competitors.
Yeah,
so
for
you
sure.
need
Yep.
to make sure that your brand is distinctive.
Yep.
There's a style, there's there's iconography, to make sure that people know that it's you. Because like the internet is just awash with content nowadays, and if people don't know it's you, that's that's potentially very damaging.
Yeah, no, for sure. So like you've been doing this for what, more than 10? You said 13 years or whatever it is. Where, like, what is on the horizon for you in terms of like what does JaysBrickBlog look like in 6-12 months, or, you know, are there things that you haven't done before in the way you capture content that you want to try? Like, what is the direction from here?
Yeah, obviously I'd love to keep growing. I'd love to keep growing, but like my main like objective right now is honestly just like sustainability. I just want to sustain what I'm doing, because I've gotten to a pretty like happy baseline, and I'm pretty happy if I can just keep this up and keep doing what I do, because it's a dream job. I enjoy what I'm doing. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but you know, it's work that gives me energy instead of draining me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I just want to be able to keep this up, and that goes into like my stamina as well. You know, how do I sustain myself and make sure that I can, you know, perform and create and write at the same level that I'm doing right now on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Is there anything you do to kind of like keep you fresh or keep you kind of like driven, like outside?
Yeah, I just take I
Is
take
it fitness?
breaks.
Is it like
no?
race?
I take breaks.
Yeah.
I take breaks when I need to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, now that I've been doing this full time for just over 2 years now.
Okay. Yep.
I'm much more familiar with like the different cycles and also my energy levels. So like if I'm feeling drained, I need to like just not do any Lego stuff for a while, just to like recharge, you know, get inspired, you know, whether that's, you know, reading a book, watching movies, just doing something else. That just, you know, kind of recharges my like creative.
So just understanding
battery.
where to balance and how to
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really good, man. Look, I have really enjoyed chatting to you and finding about your story.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, go for it.
Can you give me some advice? Like what piece of advice would you give me?
In terms of
just anything.
I would say, like, I love that you've talked about branding and your personality. So if I was to give more advice, I would just be like, I would be milking that as much as possible. I would be honing in on getting your personality out there as much as possible through, I know, the likes of socials, YouTubes, because for me, I love that whole, you know, relation to people. I love like hearing people's stories. I love hearing about your interests outside of Lego, or just getting to know that person, because I think so many other people are similar. You're right. Like there's so many other Lego blogs out there, but why do I want to follow JaysBrickBlog? It's because I relate to this guy. I like his personality. I like the stuff that, you know what I mean? I think people want to feel that authenticity. They want to feel that people are real. They're not always on this kind of like, you know, always on kind of thing. There are low moments, there are high moments. I think that's what a lot of people love. So if I was to give any advice, I'd just be like, just keep doing the personal stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All
but
right.
other than that,
I'll take that
man,
on
like,
board.
I really appreciate you coming down here and, you know, making the trek out to our warehouse from where you are. And
no, it's been good. I was meant to come here like a long time ago, but
we've
I've
been
just
talking about it. But I'm glad we made it happen, and I'm hoping that others out there have enjoyed this discussion and getting to know Jay on a more personal level. But like, you know, for me, it's like when it comes to like Lego reviews, it's JaysBrickBlog is the go-to for me. So
thank you.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a natural thing. It's funny because I also thought, like, before I actually knew you, I actually thought you were based in America. Like, I was like, you just assumed that any kind of like high profile Lego go-to site is American or European. I had no idea that you were in Melbourne, and not just that, you're also from Malaysia as well.
No, homegrown.
And I was like, awesome. Yeah, we got to hit something up. But that's cool, man. Again, thanks for the discussion. And I hope everyone's enjoyed this one. If you enjoyed it, then hit the subscribe button, the like, the thumbs up, and feel free to leave a comment or a question for Jay, and we'll make sure they get answered. Thank you, and catch you later.